Good morning, good evening, good whatever it is to everybody. I've been having strange YouTube stuff on my end today, regardless of what device I go on. Thumbnails not loading, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm sort of tentatively approaching this stream thinking that maybe it's going to crap out on us, but let's see what happens. Today we are looking at... We should be looking at 4 platformers. I hope you're enjoying the new thumbnail. I did a new style to get ready for the next kind of few months of slightly changing the format of Indies Under the Knife and blending the patrons' games in with the publicly submitted games. If you're new to the channel, you can submit a game at indiegameclinic.com. Don't email it to me. There's a form. There's a form for lots of reasons. The form explains the reasons why there is a form. Don't ask me. You can submit a game, needs to be a work in progress. If you want to jump the queue, you can support the channel on Patreon. And then, you know, I'll play your game sooner and more often. But I do advise people, don't support the Patreon just to get that perk. See what the channel's about. Watch some of the other videos. See what our ethos is. Occasionally, someone watches 1 or 2 videos, doesn't really get the channel, storms straight into the Patreon Discord, starts going on about how great AI is and you know, how they don't care about small indie games and all of this stuff. And it's just like, man, read the room. There's hours of video content that make it easier for you to read the room. Read the room. So today we're supposed to be looking at Climb Out of Hell, was one of the games submitted, which looks like a cute little you know, swinging-based platformer where you play Calcifer, or something that looks like Calcifer from Howl's Moving Castle. This one just doesn't have a playable version. The itch page is gone, the version that was on the itch page. The Steam version doesn't have a demo anymore. So, yeah, I get sometimes things time out because they've been in the queue for a long time, but also, why not leave the demo up to kind of get feedback and stuff? I understand people take their demos down sometimes because their game has changed so much and the demo no longer represents the game, but seems like a strange choice here. This looks like a really visually beautiful game. I would have liked to have checked it out, but we can't. The other games we're checking out today, the 3 games that we're checking out today now, because one has been eliminated, are called Valerie, Spring Escape, and Holo and Veil. So I'm going to start with Holo and Veil. Should have these all downloaded now. Let's check it out. We're going to do Holo and Veil, Valerie, and Spring Escape. Spring Escape has its kind of own demo that is separate from the game. I'm going to actually go to Valerie first because Holo and Veil lied to me and said it was downloaded when it wasn't, which is nice. Brainoid's representing Twitch. KP and Brainoid hanging out in the Twitch, as always. Oh, it's gone onto the wrong screen. Classic. There we go. So, yeah, I multi-stream to Twitch as well. We don't have many viewers over on Twitch, which is fine. This is predominantly a YouTube channel, but we multi-stream because some people prefer to watch on Twitch even, not on itch. I'm getting my game sites mixed up. I'm seeing Next Z and Skip C. I'm always a little bit apprehensive when I see a platformer and then it doesn't have like native gamepad controls. Like, I grew up with PC games and Amigas and stuff, but platformers to me are a console native genre, and I feel like they should be developed with controllers from day 0. So Next Z. Okay, let's just kind of see if... Ah, yeah. It switched. It says next with A. Okay, cool. Do bear in mind this is only a demo and certain aspects may not fully reflect the completed game. Well, that's not what a demo is, but let's not get into that today. If you'd like to give feedback or join the community, please consider filling out the feedback form or joining the Discord. Both of these can be found in more info. You can also view the controls and change them in options. A controller is recommended, but keyboard support is available. That's all. Hope you enjoy, Joel. Okay, cool. Just going to see if there's any notes from the developer on this one before we start. No, they haven't sent any kind of questions or things to focus on or anything like that. They've just sent the game. That's totally fine. Sometimes people say, hey, what do you think of this particular thing in the game? I like the way that this menu is built. I like the sound effect. I like the kind of quirky, nostalgic music. It's a nice setup to start off with. It's kind of making me feel confident that the rest of the game will have a lot of care and attention put into it, even just because of the music and interface choices in that black screen. The word magic is always referred to an impossible act, something akin to reading this text that's too fast. Yet no other word could describe the results of my meditations, revealing the dormant power I believe the unbound mind, Elliot Wordsworth. Okay, we've got a game about magic. That's a nice way of framing it. Giving us a quote from a book. This story begins when such ideas spark a keen passion in one particular child. Looks like we're doing magical theme in a kind of slice of life, possibly modern, sort of 20th century looking world. Kind of Kiki's Delivery Service type vibes. Elliot Wordsworth, number 52. Wordsworth. No unsliced salesman, flyers or mail. Mum, are we sliced? Unsolicited, Val. It means they don't want it. But we have a good reason to be here, so there's nothing to worry about. Okay. Stay calm and speak clearly, just like we practiced. I forgot the lines. There's some good words to button press ratio here. Apologies for wasting your time. We don't do donations. Please be on your way. Hello, Mr. Words, have you and your Becca Megalomus? This is very Miyazaki protagonist kind of writing going on here. Leave, or we'll call the police. Dearie me, I'm sorry to intrude. It's about the Unbound Society. If you're interested in joining us, then I must ask you to leave. We've had far too many hallucinating quacks coming here as of late, and besides, we don't provide a play area or anything of the sort. Actually, it's my daughter that's interested. Mum, this isn't Eliard. He looks curlier than the pictures. You're correct. My name is Phil, and I'm a student of his. And right now I've been sent to the door to politely shoo you away. Ma'am, do you see this book? This is the foundation of our knowledge. There's no way a child could understand it. Your daughter's imagination must be exceptional to convince you to knock on our door, but she is sadly delusional. He's turning into Alan Moore. Your daughter's imagination must be exceptional. Valerie, can you show him? Just gonna kamikaze. Oh, that's a cool use of VFX. I can't focus like this. I see. How intriguing. We can discuss this further inside, but I'm afraid the child will have to sit out for now. Sit out? Well, Valerie, was it? Down the street and over the bridge, there's a park. The grown-ups need to have their grown-up conversations, so you'll need to play there for a short while. Is this really necessary? It's for her own good. The park is supervised during the day, so she'll be perfectly safe. As long as it's quick. Will I be Eliard's student too? I don't know yet, but I'll do my best to tell them everything. Make sure you stay in the park, okay? Okay. That curly man was creepy. Anyway, I'll be able to meet Eliard soon. For now, I'll just have to wait in the park. It should be just along this street. So, this is all very charming. I'm not getting my writing cringe thing that I often get from games that start off with a big chunk of narrative. all of the characters are kind of written reasonably well. They have their own kind of voice, cadence, personality in what they say. There's a good kind of click to words ratio, which we talked about recently. It looks like we're going to get a bit of kind of Night in the Woods type platforming, but in a real place. And the thing that makes me think about, and what I'm going to be kind of probing over the next half hour or so, is when we've got a setting like this that is a real place, how does that impact positively or negatively the ability for the developers to do platformer level design? Because I can already look at this and I can see that there's some potential issues with like legibility of which surfaces are background and which are solid. Like when you look at the visual style of the ground that she's standing on, there is nothing to really distinguish that as being a solid plane compared to the walls of the building behind or the roof of the building behind. There doesn't seem to be a very clear visual language for what is solid and what is not. And like, you know, Squilpy was just saying in the chat about there is a kind of faint volumetric fog or whatever. You would call this, there's a name for it, atmospheric shading, right? So you go, okay, we're going to have a blue fog, and the further away something is, the more we shade all of the blacks and the greys down to being like a blue color, and that gives a sense of depth. There is a bit of that. There looks like it's kind of slightly green the further back it goes, but it's not very strong. And in a game like this where we've got the action happening on a specific plane, I would expect there to be a tiny bit of that fading fog even before we get to the houses that are in the background that are like directly behind the character, because that helps us to distinguish between this and this solid thing. And I think they've maybe tried to do that a little bit, but it just doesn't seem extreme enough. If you look at Hollow Knight, for example, they do a very good job of distinguishing what's something on the same layer as the player that you're going to bump into versus what's something just behind. And in Hollow Knight, there are even like things that you can walk past that are behind the character in the distance, but they're only just in the distance, like these doors and fences. And if you hit them, you can still break them, but they don't actually form a barrier. And those things have a set of visual cues that allow you to know that they are behind the knight rather than standing in the way of them on the horizontal plane. And, you know, I hate for Hollow Knight to be like the example that we always go to for every platformer for how to do the art design, but I think you could already see some elements here where they need to take some cues there, because every single individual bit of art here is absolutely gorgeous, but I'm looking at it and I'm worrying that when we get to a point where we're actually doing platforming, it's going to become visually confusing very quickly, because the focus is a little bit too much on making it look like a real place. And that's going to maybe cause some problems for being able to do interesting platformer layouts. But there's also like this issue of like legibility and making sure it's clear which things we can jump on. That is a lovely little toy-like interaction. So I can run past that way, or I can... And we've also got doors we can go into. Mum didn't teach me to open random doors in the street. We've got like a different UI style for when it's her internal thoughts, which is nice. It's better than just the character sort of thinking out loud in a weird way. The notice board has various posters. Which should I read? Tell me about the Saturday market. Tulia Market, every Saturday, 8 to 5. Come and enjoy the lively market atmosphere. Fresh vegetables, fruits and dairy products, fresh bread, pies and cakes, household goods, clothing and tools. For stall bookings, contact the town hall. Okay. Yeah, Madeline is a good reference point. I'm getting Madeline from it as well. Everything here is absolutely gorgeous. Just think we're going to get some like value and... yeah, like you say, value issues with like knowing what's meant to stand out more. How cute is that? I can be a ballerina. I can be a knight. Can't quite be a dragon right now. Not tall enough. This is such a good... I think the camera swing is a little bit intense left to right as well. Like, I think... I've had to do a lot of this kind of on Dirt World, and thanks to Gleb for, or Golem Gourmet, thanks to Gleb for making our camera controller so easy to play around with. But I think in a platformer where you're doing sort of very minute left and rights, like I'm doing to manipulate these, you maybe need a little bit of a dead space in the middle, because otherwise it gets a bit sickening. Doesn't matter so much if it's Sonic the Hedgehog and the emphasis is on always being moving. Kitty cat. This is so sweet. All the way up there. We're tutorializing the platforming through the story of what happens when Valerie goes off to play in the park while her mum is seemingly signing the waivers for joining a cult. What do you think, Bubbles? Oh, I wonder what's over that wall. Mum told me to stay in the park, but I'm a precocious child. And the tutorial wants me to jump over there. Bubbles, you here? Oh, you have to jump. Jump and hold. She's jumping. That's great. That motion and animation felt like it fit with the level of sort of realism that the game is going for. Because there is a challenge when you make a game like this that is set in the real world or something close to it. You're going away from kind of Mario territory and you're going into like Prince of Persia territory. And that means that it kind of changes people's expectation of how the character's going to handle, and they need to be able to like mantle and, you know, do things like that and not necessarily jump crazy high like a superhero unless there's a good reason for it. We've got some lovely like momentum slides down hills and stuff as well that feel very Sonic-y. Yeah, it's a very nice... I can bounce off the sheep. So we've got creatures in the environment that can be kind of interacted with, but they're not enemies per se, which is nice as well. Yeah, the color palette is really rich. I'm glad that we don't have kind of plastic green, though, because it hurts my brain when I see games where everything is the most saturated plastic green, and it's like the most dominant color. It's the same kind of thing I was talking about recently when we were talking about like how you can make something look cute, but also like it's for adults. And things like Over the Garden Wall is a good reference. Someone mentioned the cartoon Madeline in the chat, which is, you know, a kid's cartoon, but it's the sort of thing that's written to be reasonably mature that you would watch as a family. It's got that kind of vibe, and the color palette does a lot of that work because it's colorful. There's a lot of saturation here. It's kind of inviting and warm, but it doesn't have that plastic quality that, you know, when you go in... A lot of kind of low poly assets have this quality. If you don't retexture them, there's just this kind of plastic green quality that makes something look like Paw Patrol or something made for toddlers. And all of that stuff communicates who the audience for your game is. And if you're making an indie game for adults and it looks like it's for 6-year-olds, they're not going to buy it. Whereas this is kind of charming. You know, my 11-year-old daughter would play this and want to play this, but it doesn't feel like alienating to an adult audience by looking like it's too childish. I think it's called a cairn. Mum told me if I was ever lost, finding one of these meant I was on the right path. That's going to be a checkpoint, maybe? Yep. Wonderful. Really great narrative design here of taking all the kind of standard platformery things and tying them into the sort of folklorish magical setting of the world in a way that feels really kind of cohesive and competent. Press A while holding thing to drop through. A small blueberry found on a bush in the forest. I could eat lots of these, so that when we kind of find a food item, it puts our health back up. So you don't necessarily like... Oh yeah, no, I've got a... Okay, so I'm not eating them as soon as I pick them up. I've got a food inventory, and I press eat to just eat the next item in that. Okay, that's nice to know. So we've got a heal button, and you kind of top it up with an inventory of fruit that you pick, which again just feels really thematically on point with it being in nature and it being a kind of reasonably realistic setting rather than one where you just, you know, it's not Streets of Rage where you find a chicken on the floor and immediately eat a whole chicken and get all your health back kind of thing. Which way did you go? I can't see you anywhere. How'd you expect me to reach you all the way up there? Silly kitty. Wait, is it because you want to see my magic? If I use it, I'll easily be able to reach you, I hope. There's got to be some spirit drops around here. This is such a good narrative introduction to all of the mechanics in the game. And, you know, there's so much here that is reminiscent of how other games work. We've got the A and down, the jump and down to drop through platforms. Those are really standard platformer controls that show that the developers are actually fans of platformers rather than people that are just making a platformer because they think it's going to be the easiest type of game to make, which, quite frankly, is probably why platformers are such an underperforming genre on Steam. I don't think it has anything to do with quote-unquote the market. I think it has to do with it being a kind of over-attempted genre for noobs. This is a game that feels like it was made by platformer enthusiasts, and you have a really, really nice kind of combination of the momentum-based Sonic the Hedgehog type stuff, which ties in really, really nicely with it being a more real-worldy setting, having all of these rolling hills. Yeah, just lots of stuff here that's really, really promising and surprising to see. I think I see so many disappointing platformers, and there's a lot here to like. A small white marble can be equipped from the inventory. Add +1 to slide, 1 TP. So we're getting... Oh, man. I hate it when, as a small child, I go into the woods and I get skewered by a spike trap. Now, you do have the problem that because everything else is a bit naturalistic, those really video gamey things start to stand out as strange a bit more. But at this stage, I'm invested enough that I don't really care. So, inventory. We've got a trinket. We've got 3 trinket points. So, they've got the kind of Hollow Knight kind of, you know, you can get these little power upgrades, but you've only got a certain amount of slots for them thing, which gives you a good reason to explore and look for things in different places, and is going to change the feel of the character over the course of the game as well. So we've got our sliding has been leveled up by that trinket. Rayman is a... Yeah. Rayman, Dynamite Heady, all of those like very slippery kind of post-Sonic platformers. It's got the same feel as those. It's really nice. Whoa. That was great. There's some really tight level design there in terms of how far you can get with the jumps and the kind of metrics of how tight the level design is. I love this bouncing off of sheep thing. It's a bit kind of sort of Animal Well-esque. Quite forgiving in terms of how that wall climb works as well, which is good because it's one of the trickier, newer mechanics. Okay, I've got some sort of magic thing. I think they might be doing something very clever with the level design, or the kind of challenge, the goal of the level here as well, where it's like instead of the goal of this platformer level being to get over the other side, it's more like a big non-linear playground that you're supposed to run around and get the magic points so that you can cast your spell for the narrative reason of getting to the cat, right? Which is really kind of interesting. It's like treating a single-player platformer level as an arena, or almost like a skate park, you know, like a Tony Hawk skate park, You're just sort of exploring it and finding all the corners where you can do tricks and stuff and find the collectibles. And I don't know if that's a pattern that's going to persist through the rest of the game, but it's really neat if that is the shape of the whole game. It's like, oh, I need to do a spell, so I need to power up my magic with these 3 things to do this kind of narratively focused spell, in this case of getting to the cat. And in order to do that, I need to go around this non-linear platformer and find everything and do all of these trick jumps and stuff. If that's the shape of the whole game, then this game is doing something really special, and I really, really like it already. Danger, do not attempt to cross. Okay. I guess I shouldn't have attempted to cross. Fraud. Fraud. A boingy on the fraud. Can we boingy on that? Whoa. Okay. Right, the final one is up there, so we need to just get as high in the level as we can, I think. I don't think there's anything to gain from going back this way right now, because it seems like this is all just those tutorial prompts. So I need to get to the top right of this space to get the last piece of magic. The you can go in the tent. Excuse me. I got a map. On the pile of bags is an open book with the top of the page titled Journal Entry 1047. Should I read what's inside? Read it. I wish to feel that itch to write again. That was the goal of this hike. After all, I found the perfect camping spot just far away enough from the noise of the town, yet close enough to restock my supplies before I continue my journey. Yet as I sit here in the warm ambience of my lamp, no fresh ideas are coming to mind yet, but that's fine. Tonight I intend to hike up this hill in search of a spot I heard rumours about from the townsfolk. It seemed well worth a visit despite the worried looks on their faces when I told them I intended to go. Does nobody else walk around this part of the forest? Perhaps it's only reserved for odd ducks such as myself. Okay. I've tried pressing up on the flowers to see if I can climb them like a ladder, but I don't seem to be able to, so I'll try again in a minute if I can't advance any other way. Bon. That vine looks... I think those vines are there to explain why the platforms are there, but they look climbable. Oh, that's cool. Neat. Really great set of toys in this level. Just like loads of little things that you have to kind of interact with and learn how they work so that you... There's just a lot of different stuff. It's one of those things where it just immediately inspires confidence in the rest of the game because of the amount of care that's been put in making this an interesting place. There's like an interesting little tunnel over there that looks like you can run down it. Where is it? Ah, there's one there, yeah. How do we get in there? Nearly. Got no food left. Bloop. So, Lilia, you were saying she specializes in bubble magic. That's right, she's obsessed. I see. Of all things, why that? She could have chosen something much more useful. I doubt she's thought about it herself. She's just not interested in anything else. She could probably do much more if she set her heart to it. Elliot's suggestion should be suitable then. Thank you for bringing her to us. I think she'll come to understand in time. Before we go, I need to get something. One moment. Oh, what is it? A gift to mark the occasion. Need to get back up to the... Oh, what happened then? I didn't know, need to go back up to the cat. I could just do some magic there. Just have a dunk in the well of creation. In the depths of her mind, a path has been retraced. Valerie can now use the bubble gun. Whoop. We've got two control options. We can either press X to shoot in the direction that we're facing, or we've got a directional thing with the right stick. That's great. Feels very Gunstar Heroes. They're answering that question I had at the beginning. How do you do the zanier parts of platforming in a realistic world? Well, you don't. You go to the spirit realm, which, if you look at the background, is stylized to look like the inside of someone's brain, which is very cool. Bubbles let you bounce at different angles. Remedial herb, a rare herb with lasting health benefits. Maximum HP. Do I need to equip that? Is it? No, we've just got permanent maximum HP. Don't fall down the hole, you silly child. Gotta go over to the left here, I think. Real kind of different vibe to this whole level. So I think this is, you know, this is a representation of her sort of unlocking her new bubble magic thing in her mind. So she did her focus, we've gone into her brain, and now we're doing this stuff. And it's such a nice contrast to the world outside that we've just been in. You know, we've got a different color scheme, characters presented differently. It feels really surreal, and it's so much more powerful when you do this kind of inside someone's head type stuff, but from a context where we've seen what the outside world is like before, rather than it just being like an excuse to make a completely surreal game. Which is, you know, fine as well, but it's so nice as a point of contrast to realism to go into something weird like this after we've done, like, establish what the world outside is like. Oh. What's the point of that? Is there any point in going down there? Doesn't look like it. Look at that, you can slide and stop. Ah, I see. Great. That's not how you do that. Don't bounce yourself into oblivion. Public service announcement. Don't bounce yourself into oblivion. What does it mean when it goes pink like that? There's like a couple of stages of zapping the trap to make a bubble, and I'm not sure what the pink one means. Oh, don't mind if I do. I'm gonna just full screen it for a little while. Get some I think the things that could be improved upon are just like the depth and the separation of the background from the foreground. And I think when we were in the town at the beginning, you know, just some more things moving in the background, a little bit more of the wind and stuff. There's a lot of kind of wind on the flowers and stuff here, but there wasn't in the town at the start. And I think that's because the developer has built the game in the correct order, and they've spent the time on the things that the player spends the most time seeing. And that means the first couple of scenes haven't had as much time, which I think is the correct order to build the game in. But it just, yeah, needs a little bit more of that care and attention at the start. Very silly kitty, but it's okay. I'll just have to find more spirit drops. Can't get anywhere from there. Ah, that's interesting. Okay. Need to bubble them when they're in the right place. So the pink stage that things can be in is the one before breaking. So you can shoot things 3 times and they go back to not being in a bubble. Gonna let that little bug out. You don't want to stay in there. I have an idea. We bubble that flower and then run at it from really far away. Can I jump up onto it? Shoot through that. Okay. I really like this, you know, gradually coming back to the same area and being able to access new things with the new power. Really well executed here. We've got an extra trinket slot. We've got 4 slots now, although I've only found 1 trinket, but that's nice. Got quite a lot of oxygen by the looks of it from that breathing bar up the top. Oh. Don't bubble them into the choke point, though. That was spooky. Giving me some Earthworm Jim vibes right now. Ah! And the bubble power mixed with lots of moving characters and projectiles is really, really cool. That really creates a big old skill ceiling for you to play around with and master over time, having the bubbles that you use to as your traversal power. The bubbles that you use as your traversal power often are being generated off of moving characters and their projectiles, and that just means there's loads of room for having to approach a situation differently. It's really, really cool. We've got 2 trinket pouches now, but only one trinket, so hopefully we'll find some more trinkets soon. Oof. Ah! We're going to have to move on soon. As much as I am appreciating this game, I'm tempted to cut this down and do a whole kind of short video just on this game, because I think it's an incredibly good example of what a good platformer is. And I'm so sick of people pretending that they're like an inherently unappealing genre rather than just a genre that is filled with bad stuff. Oof. One of the reasons why I'm making a platformer myself at the moment. Who's that in the... Sorry, so who is it? Chaffmere. Sorry, sometimes the chat makes someone's name a colour I can't read. Chaffmere said, everyone makes a platformer as their first project, including me, haha. Yeah, I mean, same. One of the reasons I'm making one now is I just thought it would be really interesting to go back to when I've actually got some sort of design and programming skills and art skills that I didn't have at the start. Because, I don't know, I think I'm quite contrarian, so if people are like, oh, this thing doesn't work, you can't succeed if you do this thing, you shouldn't do that thing. I'm like, well, maybe you just suck. That's kind of the way I think a little bit. If people tell me not to do something because it doesn't work, I'm like, I kind of take that as a challenge a little bit. So I think it's quite interesting to go back to a genre that people sort of associate with newbie game dev and just try and do something really good. I mean, that's kind of what this is, right? Things get a negative association because of being kind of inundated with bad stuff, and it's like, well, that doesn't mean that there's nothing good in that category of stuff. It applies to games, I'm sure it applies to lots of other things. You know, look at how people talk about podcasts and dudes with podcasts. Are there no good podcasts just because there's like a stereotype of, you know, men who aren't experts on a topic but decide to make a podcast about it? It doesn't like remove the good podcasts from existence just because there's a stigma, you know, a rightful stigma around there being too much of a bad version of something, you know? We can get over the pit of death now. She's gone. Didn't we explain to her clearly? I wonder what's happened. She did look upset. I only told her to meet us here. Yes. You said making her sit out was unnecessary, but she would have been fine being in there herself. I wouldn't be so sure. Elliot doesn't care for the pleasure of those who waste his time, and she's only a child. Besides, she's really gone on her own little escapade. We'll have a lot of work on our hands if this becomes a regular issue. The sun's already starting to set. Maybe I should have known. She's always been one to... How can I say? Abscond? Go her own way. Phil. Yes. What's over this wall? This is the edge of the town, so it's just wilderness beyond it. I see. Platformers have to be categorized by dev skills. We should have a learning project tag on Steam. We do a focus with our 4 magics that we collected. We go back to the brain world. I want to see what the new ability is that we're unlocking. I'm going to see what the new ability is and then move on to today's next game. But I've had a very good time with this. It's very rare I get sent a platformer that makes me think I would just happily play this on my own when I'm not streaming it as part of the channel, but this game is kind of doing that for me right now. In the depths of her mind, a path that's been retraced. Valerie can now use the boost. Hold RT to boost in any direction. Oh, nice. We're getting some real kind of pinball, platformer pinball vibes with these powers. So now we can go skippity up there and then boost up that way. Okay, I think we need to be going a bit faster to make that. I'm getting a little bit of some slowdown stuff happening for me here. So devs, if you're watching this back, don't know what's happening at this point, don't know if it's your game, but maybe look into it. Oof. Might be that we've got a bigger level or something. I'm not sure. Could be some sort of optimization thing happening in this specific level. So I press the trigger and then the direction I want to go in and I get like a little directional jump boost. Yeah, I'm gonna finish that one there, I think. But we saw what the second power was. This is great. This is just a really good example of, you know, a platformer game that feels like it's made by someone who genuinely likes platformers and is making one because that's what they want to make, and they play them enough to have this kind of literacy in the genre to understand what makes one good. And I would love to see more of that. And it's kind of, you know, the rest of the stream today, I'm going to be playing 2 more platformers. Not necessarily exactly the same subgenre as this, but it's going to be interesting to see how they match up and what commonalities they are. And that's why I play games together that are in the kind of same category. Really hope this one does well. You know, like someone said, this is a game that doesn't feel like it was sent in for feedback per se. Just, you know, it's not out yet. Check it out, give it some exposure. I'm happy to play stuff like that sometimes, as long as it still fits the remit of not being complete or not being released yet. And recently, as I go through that big list of the backlog of like 250 games currently, I put little tags on them, and I put stars on ones that I'm excited to play, and I put other tags on ones where it's like, this looks interesting, but it kind of looks a bit broken. And that helps me to make sure that we have a balance, because if I have a stream where everything feels like a very broken, you know, technical learning project rather than a game that really has any hope of being a commercial indie game, then I can't play whole streams of those. I think the last time we did an itch.io stream, it felt a little bit like that. It felt like everything was, you know, a learning project rather than, you know, what I would consider a potential indie game. And I know that's a little bit gatekeepery, but for me, indie is like a... It's why is Holo Veil still downloading? Oh, it paused while we were out. For me, you know, the difference between an indie game and like just whatever you make as a hobby is that indie is like a publishing term, right? So something doesn't really become an indie game until it's kind of out there and it's available for people to download and play and stuff. And a lot of the kind of things that are on Steam as early playtests or things that are on itch.io, they are hobby dev projects. They're not necessarily independently developed video games, because a lot of the time they don't really have enough of the qualities of a video game to be a video game yet. They're a toy, or they don't have any goals, or all of those types of things. I think we have to avoid the temptation to think that anything that you produce in a game engine is automatically a game. Which a lot of people never really get past. They just think, oh, I'm tinkering around in a game engine, making stuff, I'm having fun learning. What I'm doing must be indie game dev. So you're not really developing a game, you're just using a game engine to make things, and those things have some of the quality of a game. But, you know, there's a reason why this channel is specifically branded as Indie Game Clinic, and you'll see all of the other game dev channels on YouTube are, you know, about game dev. They don't necessarily have indie game in the title. That was a very specific decision made on my part to differentiate us from being like a hobby channel, which is, you know I often talk about you should do this as a hobby first. You should do it because you enjoy it. And that's an important step on the road to making commercially viable things. I don't, you know, this whole idea that you're going to just start learning a game engine and then a year later release a game that can be of a high enough quality to sell to people is kind of insane in my mind. But you know, I do have to pick games that I think are going to be interesting for us to talk about, and if it's just like, here's what I made in my game engine, and it's the limits of what I can technically do right now, and there's nothing kind of interesting in it about it from a creative perspective or a game design perspective, then often it just won't end up getting shown, because, you know, who wants to watch that? It's just kind of going through broken stuff. And then often the limitation there isn't that the person couldn't do good game design, it's that they couldn't execute their ideas because they didn't know how to code well enough. And it's like, well, you need to learn that before you worry about what anyone thinks about the game you've made, you know? Okay, this is called Spring Escape. It's the deep down demo. They've released a demo that's separate from the main game page. I had to dig around for it a little bit. This looks incredibly charming. What are you? Did I... Ow. Oh, they're kind of two characters stuck together. The tulip is like my character's tail. What a mess. We should find a safer place before we try to understand what's going on exactly. Are you with me? So the green character is the player character. The tulip is an appendage that talks to us. It's kind of like a Navi in Zelda. Great. Patchy. All right, Patchy, let's get out of here. Patchy and Tulip. I got a little jump. I can't double jump. I can do a ground pound. And that's all of the controls that I have for now. I can also do a like... Digging around. When your feet are on fertile ground, press X to dive into it. Inside dirt, you can freely move in any direction, and getting out is as simple as plucking a carrot. That's neat. in front of one said, I'd love to send in my game for you to critique. So, directions are along the bottom. There is a Patreon. There's a longer list if you send it to indiegameclinic.com. The form's on indiegameclinic.com. Needs to be a game that's not out yet. I don't cover games that have had a commercial release, unless it's just something that really personally interests me and I've been meaning to play it. Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of character in the animations here. It's doing a lot of work already. Camera's very close in. I'm not having any issues with legibility. Part of that is because they've used these very harsh black outlines for everything that's solid, and then the background stuff doesn't use the black outlines that way. Dirt jumps. Ever wanted to reach a tall platform but your roots are too weak for that? There's a very special trick just for that. When getting out of dirt, keep A pressed and you'll be able to reach the heights of a sequoia. Definitely keep these moves in mind if you want to get those glowing crystals floating around. Can't get that one. Yeah, okay. So we're a plant. That's the theme of the game, right? And then we can go in the dirt and burrow around as a little plant guy. And then when we come out of the dirt, we can press jump as we come out and then we'll go higher. It's cool. Lots of stuff here to like. It kind of comes back to a classic thing as well of not just platformers, but a lot of games in general where they're character-driven games. Like the powers and the world of the game, the design of the world, the levels, the kind of tools that you give the player in terms of the character's ability, you should be able to kind of infer them from who the character is. You know, it's a little girl that's a witch. Okay, she can do some sort of magic. It's cute magic. It's bubbles because she's a little girl. Okay, that all makes sense. It all ties together. It all makes sense as like a holistic package. This guy is a plant. You know, the stuff that we've been able to do all makes sense. It's good. This is kind of what I want to see. You often get like stuff where the character design just doesn't relate to anything that you can do in the game. It's just what someone thought looked cool. It doesn't communicate anything about what the character can do or what you should expect the character to do. Like going along a hose or something? I don't know. I've seen a few games do this digging thing, but this is the best theming. It doesn't like destroy the earth as we go through it, it just moves us through it. Like a little worm. Wiggly worm. Wow, this place is huge. This area seems safe enough at least, though you saw that too, right? The glowing up there. It looks pretty odd, but it could be a way out. You were really good out there, by the way. Let's keep going, and we'll get out of here in no time. Okay, we can't go through there yet. That red thing zaps us. Am I supposed to be going this way? I'm getting a little bit confused. It says press B to go. I don't understand because it doesn't do anything. Oh, I have to press down to go into the plant pot. Go through the level normally. Okay, go. That's like a level portal. Oh, I love the way that the flower stays behind like that. It's really cute. Change the power on that. Am I not supposed to be going back? Oh no, yeah. Okay. Oh, there's some good use of non-linearity here, of like turning stuff off, going backtracking, you know, things are in a different state and you can kind of go past them now. Really neat level design. It's a little bit confusing, but not in a bad way. It's kind of one of the things that you have to master. See, those little sparks are going along and then shorting out that laser and then letting me get through, but only temporarily. It feels really kind of systemic. There's a little bit of a kind of almost like an ImSimmy vibe to how these levels are built, where, you know, that's not just a thing turning on and off randomly. We can see how the kind of system around it is making that happen, which is cool. Almost a little bit of that kind of Spelunky vibe of the sort of, but just very systemic and like lots of toys interacting with each other in a way that you can actually see and learn and predict, which I quite like. How do I get up there? I need to do the big jump out of the top of this, but I don't think I can dig into the soil above without going down first. So I need to do the big jump, get across, and then go up from there. It's a little bit tricky to master that jump out of the soil like that. There we go. Ah. Want to get those other shinies. Guess they're supposed to be like representative of light. We're collecting light because we're a plant. I'm not totally sure. Don't know how I get those ones. Maybe we have to come back for them later. Oh, wait. Oh, I was thinking for a moment that the blue things didn't get me because I just passed through one and I was like, why have I been dodging them this whole time? Yeah, the kind of design architecture of having loads of toys to build your levels out. I think Lost Artifact Games did a good video on that, of like basically don't do level design until you've worked out all of the things that are going to go into your level, because a level is like a playground in where you do the verbs of the game, and if you don't know what your character can do, or you know the things they can do it with or to, then you can't build levels yet. But I think that's also part of a broader pattern where when people are first making games, they sort of see a game from the outside and they see all of the parts that are in it and they go, oh, it's got a tutorial, it's got a story, it's got a loading screen, it's got levels, and they just sort of rush to make every part of the game they're working on get closer to the idea of a finished game as quickly as possible, rather than like building a set of components to design levels with, and then designing levels, and then from there deciding, okay, what's the easy first level I need to build? Is there any story? All of that kind of stuff. I think one of the benefits that I had of the time that I grew up and of getting into game dev through kind of commercial level editors first off, of like, you know, the Warcraft level editor and the Half-Life level editor and all the various level editors that were in console games, is it kind of gives you a sense of the idea that the game exists. The game exists as this set of components, and the way that those are arranged into levels and specific challenges and a story for the player at the end comes after all of those components have been built. Because often when you got a level editor for something like Warcraft, you were using the level editor that the game designers at the studio were built by the tools engineers, and that kind of shows you at a kind of implicit level that this game was made as this set of enemies, traps, environmental features. That big toolkit, that playset of toys, was made before it was arranged into the shape that a player would understand as a game. And I don't think, when you don't have that entry point, it sort of doesn't introduce you to that workflow. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, because they get a game engine and they're just trying to go as quickly as possible from nothing to something that resembles a game, and that's not a good way to make a game. You know, you need to make the toolkit of the parts. And I think that's one of the things that's misleading about game engines. All of the modern game engines sort of imply that, well, like they are an engine for a game, but every time you build a game, if you're whatever you're using, if you're using Game Maker or Godot or Unity or Unreal or whatever, you still have to build the engine of your own game. You have to decide what a level is in your game. If there's combat, you have to decide what the kind of actions are and what the damage model is and all of that kind of stuff before you start really building your game. So even though you have a game engine to handle things like the graphical rendering and the programming loop and how all of the kind of code works and everything, you still have to decide the architecture of the game that you're making specifically. And obviously it's very hard to do that when you've just started out, but it's even harder if you don't realize that that's part of your responsibility as the developer, which I think often happens because that's been hidden by the idea that there's this magical game engine that's going to do everything for you. And it's not really. It's not going to do all of the thinking about like how your game is actually structured in order for you to make the specific kind of content arrangements that your game needs, you know? Even if you make an entire game using Unity blueprints or Game Maker drag and drop, and you never have to code anything in a traditional way, you're still going to be responsible for a bunch of like architectural decisions about how that game is structured and what it means for a level to exist and all of that kind of stuff. I'm very, very lucky at the moment to be able to afford to have like someone more experienced than me on the technical side help me out with programming. But even then, a lot of the processes, I make like a very hacky prototype of a feature, and then we see if it works from a gameplay perspective with like the badly coded version. And then after that, it's like, okay, now we know that this works and this doesn't. What would be the proper way of building this? It's always like one step forward, two steps back. But I think that's the best way of doing things, because if you over-engineer things before you even know if that's what you need, then you're going to end up wasting time. Or worse, you won't waste the time because you'll over-engineer it and then you'll go, I'm never going to change this because I spent so much time on it, even if it ends up being not fit for purpose. That's the thing that happens quite a bit when people are like coming into games from more of a traditional programming background, and they are a little bit too proud on like making the game technically sound before it's actually sound from a game design perspective, and sort of over-engineer and like over-optimize the game, and then playtesting should reveal, oh, you should make XYZ change to the game. And then they don't really listen to that data because it would require them to completely restructure stuff that they spent a lot of time architecting, which is why it's, you know, it's usually better to playtest with something quick and dirty, which is why prototypes are not, you know, version 0.1 of a game. They're a completely different project a lot of the time. Hey, my name's Tulip, and they are Patchy. We've been scrambling around here in search of an exit. What's your name? Oh, I'm Daisy, and I've also been trying to look for an exit to this place, but it's hard to get around like this. Although you two look like you're well equipped to make your way through this mess. All credit to my fella down there. Question though, were you chewing on those crystal thingies? The drop crystals, but of course these little things are so sweet and equally sturdy. Did you know it took me a month just to get through my first one, but believe me, it's so worth it. Well, we don't really have that kind of sweet tooth. Want ours? You have some? Ah, thank you. I was just starting to run out. However, I think it's only fair if I give you something back. I don't have a lot of super useful stuff, but I can teach you how to change your look. It's a little technique I learned to hide from a weird worm that roams around here from time to time. But it's also a sick way to freshen up your style. I always do it with my ribbon here. Take a look at what I've got. Oh, that's cute. We get to do some customization. Flurber said I've been able to find some good architecture material and it's been way more inspiring to actually get me working on something than the implement features fast style videos. I think if you have that kind of mind, then a good way of thinking about it is you're learning how to build particular types of systems, but you don't lock in what game it's for yet. And it's almost like, you know, if you were going to role play, okay, like imagine that over the next 5 years, I'm trying to build a studio that makes RTS games or a studio that makes RPG games. And I don't know what the shape of my good RTS or RPG game would be, but I know it will need this set of things. And then you build those things and then you can go either way with those. If you're making an RTS, you could make a tiny little mini RTS about controlling 5 boats, or you could use the same technology to make like a massive thing about loads of little guys running around, because it's going to be the same kind of UX of clicking on things and selecting them and the same pathfinding and all of that. I think if you're a very kind of technical systems architecture type person, that's quite a good way to approach game development, is to go, okay, if I were to just like rule out certain types of games and say, I'm not going to make platformers, I'm not going to make action games, I'm going to make loosely this type of game, what are the things that I will definitely need regardless of what the theming or the mechanical specifics of that game is? And then you kind of learn how to build that, because, you know, no one's good at everything. And like even the best programmers in the world will be like slightly better at doing kind of game feel, squishy, moment-to-moment action type programming, or UI, or systems architecture, or something like that. And that, you know, every programmer I've worked with has had a bias towards something that they enjoy doing more, and they usually end up being better at the thing that they enjoy doing more because they're happy to like spend the extra time getting it right. Whereas when there's a particular thing that feels like pulling teeth, it's like, okay, I need to learn to do that, but, you know, it's not the thing I enjoy enough to put in the extra cycles to make the thing really good. And I think the more you can orient yourself towards the things that you actually enjoy doing, the more likely you are to be successful with them as well. You know, that doesn't mean totally avoid things you don't like doing, but it's just sort of listen to your brain and what your brain kind of jives with well, you know? I'm just dipping back into the chat and looking back a little bit. I'm gonna be purple. Color obtained. So I've got some sort of currency for obtaining these. That's cool. Okay. Oh, I can change the color of the flower. That's cute. We can have a trans flower. I'm just gonna have a purple flower for now. Do I have enough? Oh, they all cost a different amount. I'm gonna have a trans flower. Why not? People got randomly upset when I had a pride flag in the background of my studio recently. I only took it down because the radiator got replaced and I couldn't hang anything on it anymore. But so there's a button thing on here that's incorrect. The B doesn't do anything, it's X. So I think there's like a, if the dev is watching this back, there's a tooltip here that is just wrong. Because B doesn't do anything in this context. I have to press X and it brings up the next menu. Viscous masses blast away. Go through the level normally. Okay, go. Did the music go out of tune when I went through the slime? Because if it did, that's very cool. Let me see. Jump out of here. The slime travel detunes the music. That's so good. Yeah, it was someone someone left a comment on the video who had never interacted with the channel before anyway, so like why would I care about their opinion? It makes it very easy on YouTube to see if someone is a regular commenter because you can like click on their thing and it tells you. And they said he's got a shrine to homosexuality in his living room. And I just muted them forever because that's what I tend to do with rude people. But what I was really thinking was something along the lines of, you know, it's interesting that you're focused on homosexuality because the pride flag represents so many more different types of, you know, divergences in who people are attracted to or how they feel about gender, their own gender or gender generally. And it's very interesting that you would be so focused on homosexuality and all of that. You know, the LGBT plus umbrella includes lots of different things, including people that don't enjoy sex at all are part of the LGBT umbrella. You know, like, for example, that guy's wife. You know. That's a type of being queer now. Has been recognized as such since about 2015. Looking at a timeline of when the different things were added after the plus recently. Obviously that's a off-color joke. If you're watching this and you're ace or demi, I'm not suggesting that that is actually someone being ace or demi, but I think it would be a funny comeback for that kind of situation. Just like the gay candles. I should make a shrine to homosexuality. I'm completely indifferent to homosexuality though. I wouldn't have a shrine to it. But what I would do is if I had a little flower growing off me that I could change the colour of, I would make it the trans flag just to piss people off. If they're the type of people that care too much about that sort of thing. You know. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like what KP's saying. Didn't know it was a thing till 5 years ago. Right? People didn't. People just thought they were... People just thought they were like, there was something wrong with them, rather than, okay, this is actually quite a normal way for people to feel, that lots of people feel that way. And people like think that people are being performative by having these labels. It's like, no, it benefits everyone. You know? It benefits everyone to have those labels. Even if you're like the straightest person in the world, if you are aware that there are people that just don't feel sexual attraction, and you're like a very sexual person and you wouldn't want like a partner who wasn't very sexual. That benefits you to sort of know that ace and demi people exist, right? Even as someone that doesn't consider themselves queer or isn't really interested in any of it, it's still beneficial for people to have that identity and that label. I know that's not the right way to think about it, because it's about yourself and like what's beneficial for you in terms of identity. But even like the straightest person in the world, if they really kind of looked into it, would understand that having these ways of sort of understanding and talking about our identities and preferences is beneficial to everyone. Kind of said some people have visceral reactions to things regardless of context. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why, you know, when people say there's that fake Morgan Freeman meme which says, if you're a homophobe, you're not scared of things, you're just a jackass, which is like, I don't think Morgan Freeman said that. It's one of those misattributed quotes that goes around. But, you know, the thing about phobias is they don't have to be about being scared. They can also be about disgust. You know, like food phobias are about disgust. And, yeah, people have disgust reactions to things that they're not used to. I don't really have much sympathy for that when it comes to human beings. But I think psychologically it's what's happening. Scorpio, I think I agree about the cables. They are a little bit bold for what they are. Maybe it feels like maybe that was a thing that got bolder with time, though, because you need to see the direction of travel of the sparks. Getting chased by a drill. Like a tiny terradrome. I think incremental games will be the new learning project games. I find math intimidating. One of the things I like about programming math for games is you can like put the math in and then just see what happens and like feel the result, which you can't do with math in most other contexts. I mean, you can do it in a spreadsheet as well. I used to do a lot of balancing stuff at my first job where I would just make formula that I didn't really understand how they worked, but you make them and then you just kind of see what the numbers are doing that come out of them and you go, oh yeah, that's what I wanted. Even if it doesn't like, even if you don't really understand how you got there. Obviously, it's better to understand how you got there, but... Okay, so I think here we're supposed to survive long enough for that spark to get all the way round to short the thing. Yeah, there we go. Oh, that was cool. The amount of variations on how each mechanic is used after it gets introduced is really good here. We get like... We get the drills. Then we get... Okay, now you need to, you know, run away from a drill long enough for the spark to do its thing. And then we get multiple drills. It's just like a really nice... This feels like quite a good study in how to do this type of level design. It's quite different from the previous game because the previous game was doing that thing of going for a naturalistic world. This is a lot more abstract, which means it can just be much more video gamey and go, okay, here is challenge A involving drills. Here is challenge AB involving drills and sparks. Here is challenge AABB involving more drills and more sparks. It can be much more video gamey in how it's laid out. But it does have this overarching theme that makes it really, really work, which is basically the plants and the biological stuff are the good guys, and you're in this kind of nasty dystopian looking world. As cute as everything is, that kind of blue and grey and everything looking a little bit grubby. It's the same thing that Sonic did. Sonic had a binary opposition between like robots bad, technology bad, futuristic stuff bad, animals and nature good. And it just makes a really nice, clear kind of world building thing that also maps onto the visual design of these things, where like the plants are all kind of biological and move around and are animated in a specific way, and the rest of the game is kind of sharp and industrial looking. I don't know how to do that jump out sideways. I haven't quite worked that one out yet. Ooh. You have to press jump as you leave the soil at exactly the right moment. And so far, I've only been doing that when I leave the soil from the top, from the bottom rather than from the side. But I think, yeah, we can do it that way as well. Okay, cool. What is the need to make a gender feel different? I mean, it is what people are. There is no need to be all crazy about being human matters. A good human will be good regardless of the gender. Yeah. My thoughts exactly. I think a lot of the phobias that people have about these things are much more to do with gender expression than sex. And I know that's generalizing, but if you look at most homophobia, homophobic men aren't actually that bothered by masculine gay men. Because if you look at whenever like homosexuality is mocked by conservatives, it's always about people being feminine. It's very you never see, I mean, very rarely will you ever see homophobic conservative media that is mocking like very masculine bears, like men that have like muscles and beards and stuff. It's always about the men choosing to be feminine, or, you know, expressing themselves in a feminine way. That's the thing that is mocked. As soon as it's like masculine gay men, it's not something that's subject to mockery anymore. I find that interesting. It's almost like all these things are interconnected in some way. People are just sort of bigots in a very general way that is just like, I would like nothing in the world to be different from how I was taught it was, or how I was taught it should be, because I am a psychologically fragile person that cannot deal with having to change my mind about things. He said, as he got electrocuted. Really, this is some great ramping up of the challenge of how all of these parts fit together. Like, we're seeing parts that we've seen multiple times now. The drills, the lasers, the having to jump out of the soil at particular points. It's not introducing new mechanics in a really or new kind of things in the environment in a really rapid way. It's combining them over and over again in a way that kind of really tests the skills that we've previously developed. So when I look at what I've got to do for this section, I'm not having to do anything wildly different, but the way it all kind of ties together and just gradually gets more complex is really, really kind of it's just really, really well designed. I need to wait for that. So by the time you get to that bit, you've practiced that bit of the level less frequently, which means you don't have as strong a memory of it as this part. Which is an interesting thing about kind of challenge design. You will notice this if you've ever learned to play music, and if you mess up when you're performing a song or something and you restart every time, you know the beginning of the song really well and you don't know the middle or the end very well. And there's something about level design with that as well, which I think is why sometimes it's okay to go easy on people towards the end of a very challenging level, because by that time they're tired, they haven't played and practiced that bit as much, and it can feel really trollish to give people a really difficult level that requires a lot of concentration and then right at the end throw them a curveball that they then need to remember is there for the next time they play the level. That can be feel like a real kind of trollish move, and that can be a good or bad thing to do depending on the tone of the game that you're making, I think. Oh no, we've got a chase. We've got a chase level. Oh, what in the Crash Bandicoot is this? Annoyingly placed treasures to try and make me go backwards. Oh. Ah. Oof. I don't know anything about JSON files in Godot, but I do know that I worked at a game studio where we had technical problems because the JSON file had got too big, which is funny. Oh, what's happening here? Ah! That was a neat little chase level that didn't outstay its welcome. I used to love breaking JSON files at my first job by putting the wrong kind of quotation marks in them. Because I would type in an editor that put the curly ones in. And then it was like, no, these are a different thing. Classic. This is great. I know I've been blathering about other things all the way through it. But I really like a lot of this. This is way more challenging than the previous game. The previous game was quite chill. You could just kind of bimble around in an area, finding different things. It was quite non-linear. This is a different kind of thing. This is a little bit more kind of 90s hardcore platformer thing. It's very good at what it's doing though. So now I did that level, and now we have like an alternate version of it to do like a speedrun challenge on it. So that one I've done at a certain, got 44 out of 84 of the treasures on the basic level, and then there's like a speedrun version as well. So you can see how the game is structured. It's got this kind of like hub world that you go around and find levels in, and then you do those levels and they have kind of different modes that you can do them in as well, which feels like a good way of like getting more content without doing it in that very cheesy way of like, you know, having a main menu that is like telling you, do you want to play in this mode or this mode? Which I always feel like is a little bit of a premature delegation. Like when you tell the player, what mode do you want to play in? And they're like, hang on, I don't even know what your game is yet. Why are you asking me about modes? You know, you're the developer. You know what your game is. Give me a mode to start off with. And then after I've played your game for half an hour and decided I've liked it, then I might be able to make some sort of meaningful decision about a mode. But at the start of a game, no. So I think having these like modal choices within the game where you can choose like, you can choose the difficulty level per level, or you can choose the mode per level, and but you sort of learn the game before you get to make those choices is generally quite a good idea. Yeah, Paul, I always feel a bit guilty when I end up talking about something else over someone's game. But you're right, when nothing in the game is jumping out at me as being bad. It's just like, this is all good. Like, the art is great. That's got some real kind of Day of the Tentacle vibes, that computer there. I think the thing of having, like, a silent character that you can control that is just all facial expressions, and then a little helper character that's attached is really cute as well, because it makes it not feel like you're alone in the game. 2 buttons. I bet one of these will turn on that elevator. Look at that one, Patchy. It's green just like you. I bet that's the one. Not like that ominous red button. Which Slay the Spire boss is this? ASCII system manual activation. Request succeeded. Begin verification protocol. Please identify yourself. No response. Contacting HQ. It is defect. It's gonna just orb us. No permission to contact HQ. Unauthorized. Impost. Recalculating. Initiating security override protocol. Blah, blah, blah. Response. GO2. GO2. Ho ho with Dino. I'm doing my best. Broken computer voice. That seems bad. Seems bad. Don't like that. Don't seem to be able to get out of it, though. Just clicked into Streamlabs and now broken. I'll skip it. Okay. That is such a cool animation. Now that's making me wonder if a lot of the rest of the pixel art in the game is made that way, because we've got like a, you know, 3D generated thing that's been pixel arted after the fact. That's very cool. Oof. Okay, now he's going to do the big... Okay. I need to watch out for those highlights again. Oh, so punishing because there's no health at all. It's just one-shot kill. Yeah, I mean, the boss is 3D. It does make me wonder how much of the rest of the game has been made using that workflow. That's probably why it looks so unique, though. Because stuff like Donkey Kong Country was made that way, wasn't it? Where it was 3D models that were sort of animated like stop motion and then turned into sprites. Don't know how I'm dodging those things that are like the lasers that come down, but... Oh. Right, I'm going to do a couple more tries with this one, and then we're going to have to move on, because we've got one more game to look at, and as much as I'm enjoying this, I think just repeatedly trying to do a very twitchy boss on stream is not the level of energy my brain has quite at the moment. Oof. Great boss though. Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, the other thing that's cool here is the dystopian theming means that there's a reason why the soil that you can dig through is relatively rare in the game world. Don't kill my flower. Oof. When you're too far away when that starts, it's quite hard to, like, dash in time. So there's that, like, bit of debris in the ground that crashes, and you can bump into it to smash it up into its eye, but you can't, like, do any damage to it in any other context. So there's environmental things that you can launch into the boss to hurt it, but they're quite rare, it seems. Oh, that felt harsh because I bumped into the blade as it was withdrawing, you know, and it felt quite harsh that it still got me then. I don't disagree that it feels too hard, but that's also just because I'm being shamed by it live on air. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So that I think that's supposed to launch up in its face and hurt it, but I didn't see any feedback to indicate that that's what happened. So maybe you need to time that really well. I'm totally on board with this being like a hard as nails, one hit and you die kind of thing, but I do think sometimes the window for things could be a little bit more forgiving. I also need to remember to use the dash. The underground dash that we have. If it does that, then these are slower and you can dash under quite easily. See, that didn't look like it hit him again. You can do that and then do the big wide one next, I think. You can do the big wide one? Okay, I'm actually finding verbalizing the thinking makes it easier, which is not what I expected. I don't think we necessarily need to deal damage. I mean, the only thing I can see that looks like it's going to deal damage to it doesn't seem to work. So, I think it's just a case of surviving as many rounds as you can. Oh. When it's mining like that, the only part that's under the ground is the blades. So if you dash into them, then you'll die. So I don't think so. Oh, actually, maybe we need to jump out of the ground in a particular way and hit it. Let me try. Oh. I was trying to jump out and bonk him, and then I slid further than I thought. Yeah, there's not an obvious way to fight is the problem, because we haven't really been bashing things to deal damage thus far in the game. So if we're supposed to do that now, then it's interesting, because most of the rest of the game has been about avoidance. We do have that ground pound move, but there's nothing to do with the boss that seems like it would indicate that that's like a viable thing we can do to it. Especially seeing as we haven't been doing that to smaller enemies much throughout the game. The only time I've really been using the ground pound is to break open the blue crates. Do you think we could maybe hurt it on its tail when it's dragging along like that? I mean, I can see that when you hit the junk it flies up in the air, but it doesn't look like it deals any damage to the boss. Oh. Yeah, my timing is just totally out now. I'm too tired. Wonder how we're going to fare on game 3, but we'll see. The tail hurts you as well. Yeah, it's strange that we're signposting the spike digs in some contexts, but then these ones don't do the highlight for you. It seems kind of uneven. I don't know, it seems like it's trying to give me opportunities for attack, but every time I try and take one, it just gets denied. And because my only attack is to jump down on something, I can't see any real obvious ways that we're supposed to hurt it. But hey, maybe it'll be helpful for the dev to see this. I don't know how many times the dev has like watched people play this boss, but it seems... I mean, it's not super communicative, and also it just doesn't line up with what we've experienced so far in the game, because this hasn't been a game about, like, killing stuff by jumping on it or killing stuff by bashing into it so far. So it just feels like it's testing a bunch of skills that... Or it seems like it's the bit of, like, how do we actually damage this guy, if that is a thing, or maybe we are just supposed to dodge it the whole time, but it feels a little bit ambiguous. Okay, we leave the junk and then hit it into its eye when it does the big attack. Okay. We're waiting into... well done. Yeah, it's a puzzle boss. You know, you're supposed to use your survival skills from learning how to maneuver in the rest of the game. And then until you've worked out the one thing that you can do that can hurt it, right? Thanks for the help, chat. Oh. It'd be great if it retained that point of damage, but it won't now. Oh no, yeah, we're into the second stage. Okay, it does. Oh, it's bigger now for some reason. Or we're more zoomed in, I'm not sure. Okay, it's gonna... Oh. I do want to beat it. It's just not going to feel like a nice place to end if we don't beat this one boss. Uh-oh. What's going on here? Oh. No. Not going to do it today. That's great, though. Thanks to everyone that actually noticed how the damaging it worked. This is really cool. Like, I don't... I'm averse to just saying, like, this boss needs to be easier. But it does feel quite stingy, like someone just said in the chat. It feels quite stingy with the amount of projectiles you get to be able to hit it with. And I think maybe if you look at what kind of happened kind of cognitively for me, I knew from the start that the bit of junk that you could launch up in the air was important. I couldn't really work out when the enemy was vulnerable. So when it's like looking directly over, you hit the junk up into its eye, that does the damage, like you guys pointed out, and then I was able to do it and advance to the second stage of the boss. But the actual vulnerable state where the eye is right over the character didn't look as obvious as it could have done. So I would be tempted to even have like a change in color. I know it seems really cheesy and obvious to be like, oh, its eye is yellow, and then it's when it's in the vulnerable state, it's red. But that was where that big sticking point was in the first part of that boss fight. And I probably would have had the mental energy to push through the second phase if we hadn't have spent so long in the first phase. So let's move on to the last game of the stream today. This is called Holo Veil. Yeah, that was Spring Escape. I really, really like that. There's a lot of cool stuff there. Look how generous that demo was as well. Like, people kind of ask questions about how much should I put in my demo. When you make a demo like that is so much gameplay, that could have, you know, I could have spent longer before we got to that boss. I could have gone through and done the time trial versions of those 3 levels. There was so much content there. And that makes you look competent, and it makes players feel confident that you can do what you say you're going to do. I just need to quickly go and answer the door. 1 second. Oh, sorry, that was the delivery person with my NAS for doing my backups because I still haven't got one, which is not great. Don't swap me, bro. Um, yeah, that was really cool. Really generous demo. Uh, Loads and loads of content there, and people ask questions about that kind of stuff. Like we had a discussion about this yesterday. How much should I put in my demo? And it's like, well, think about what the actual purpose of the demo is. Stop trying to view making and publishing games on Steam as if it's like a a thing where there's like a magic set of rules and hacks to learn, because I think that's how this stuff often gets presented. But fundamentally, if you are trying to make games and self-publish them through whatever platform, you have made the decision to become a business person. And that means that you need to have a strategy, and it means you need to build a relationship with your audience, with your customers. And that means that instead of trying to get me or Chris Zukowski or whoever, some sort of guru, to tell you this is exactly what you should put in your demo, what you should be doing is thinking, you know, what do I need to do to prove to people that I can make the full version of this game that will impress them and will kind of fill them with confidence that I will finish the game? Because so frequently you go on here and you look at a quote unquote demo, it's actually like an early prototype playtest, and you play it and you think, this person has been building this for 3 years and it's still kind of crap. What does that tell me about it? Well, it doesn't really tell me that I want to wishlist this game. I definitely don't want to buy an early access version of this game because blah, 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 blah. You know, it's about engendering trust. It's just the same as, like, you know, if you go to a restaurant 3 times and everything is always of the same quality, you're going to go there more in future. You're going to tell other people to go there more in future. If you go 3 times and it's totally different every time, they keep changing the menu and it's all a bit of a state, you're just going to decide to go somewhere else. And it's the same with any sort of business. It's about, you know, building up a level of familiarity and trust with the people that you're trying to sell something to. And that means that questions like, what should be in my demo? It's like, well, what's going to make people feel like you are competent at your job as a game developer? What's going to make people feel that they can trust you to finish delivering the thing that you said you're going to make? Those are not questions that have like easy numbers attached to them, where you say, well, the demo should be 7 minutes per level, and this genre should have this many levels, and this genre should have this many levels. They're judgment calls based on you having a decent enough understanding of what people's standards are in that genre fandom as well, which is, you know, something that people just seem to not have enough understanding of because they enter into game dev as someone who is interested in it as a sort of technical hobby, rather than someone who particularly likes a certain type of video game and wants to make one of those because they've played 30 of them and they have ideas about, you know, what would be a good version of one of those that they could make. It's not the kind of answer that people like, but it's the kind of answer that is probably closer to the truth than any kind of listicle, here's exactly what you should do to make your demo kind of answer could give you. Okay, last game of the day. Let's check out Holo Veil, and I'm just going to look back through the last minute of the chat or so as that's loading up. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the demo is its own thing type thing. Yeah, Kane, it's just one of those questions you have to answer yourself, you know? And a lot of it comes down to being honest about the quality of what you're doing and all of that kind of stuff. A lot of people were making demos before they've done any playtesting and really checked whether the idea has legs. And like, a demo is a sales tool. A demo is a sales tool for something you've already decided is a commercial project. Lots of things get to the stage where there's a demo of them on Steam and they're not really validated as a project. They shouldn't be there, you know? It's the same with any medium. If you're in a band, you write songs, you practice them, you play them to people live, And you decide which ones to record and sell as a product after you've played them a bunch of times and worked out which ones really resonate with people. The same with video games and playtesting. You make stuff in a kind of gradual, incremental way with feedback from the potential audience. I think people get like bent out of shape thinking that, you know, if when they're making their game, if 100 people get to play it for free as playtesting, then no one's going to ever buy it because 100 people have already played it for free. I think people do genuinely have that mentality because they don't have a good sense of scale and like the fact that it's better to let 100 people play your game for free if it allows you to perfect it to a point where 10,000 or 100,000 people want to buy the game than to let no one play it until release and then 10 people buy it because you didn't co-develop it with the audience that it's for, and as such you've just kind of made something based entirely on your own intuition, and that might not be good enough, you know. Yeah, just games shouldn't be at the stage where they have a commercial demo on Steam when they've never been thoroughly playtested before that stage and kind of been through a bunch of iterative cycles of working out what the game even is before the person decides that it's a commercial product. Veil. Man, those guys are brutal. I should fit some training in tonight. Or maybe I'll just use my spear next time. I'm just going to see if the dev had any notes on this one before we get super into it. On the Steam page, clicking join the playtest would automatically add the game to your library. Holo is pronounced holo. Thank you very much. I mean, I don't think that's really super relevant to what we're doing here, but we've got a very quirky little walk animation there. Eggies. This is where I come to become constipated. I eat all of these eggs every day. I don't mind the art style, but I think when you pair it with very kind of like anatomically correct height characters, it feels a bit strange. Hey, Nina. Oh, hi, Veil. You seem very focused today. Really? I guess I am. I suppose you won't tell me why, if you don't ask. Maybe I should go then. I have to start my shift soon. Alright, see you. Okay, that felt a little bit like a bit of a nothing burger conversation that didn't need to be there. Save block. Touch to replenish life, restore energy, and save game progress. Okay. We're seeing lots of kind of UI presentation things that are just very directly Hollow Knight things. Can I interest you in an egg in these trying times? Hey, that's right, Saul. It's your first day today, isn't it? Yes, it is. I'm really excited. I know you'll do great. I hope so. Just remember to stay alert. Everyone's talking like that now. Oh, right, you can count on me. Urban area? I went hunting for eggs. I like the world. I'm not sure I totally like the art style and the character design. But there's something cool about this sort of science fantasy world that we're in that I think is kind of feels inventive and appealing. I think the art style is a little bit harsh in how it's using all of these art outlines. Kind of looks a little bit like stained glass windows. And they've thought about it. You know, you can see this kind of approach to outlines where the further away things are in the background, the lighter the outline is, or the outline goes away entirely. But I do think this stuff that's up close, where they've done all of these stripes in the environment, is like a little bit too bold for what it is. It feels like they've taken a lot of cues from Hollow Knight, but then they've tried to do everything using gradients, and it looks a little bit flash gamey. It's very 80s colours, yeah. The jump is incredibly floaty, yeah. Although it is quite floaty in Hollow Knight. I don't want to do all of this. I want to go and do some gameplay and see what your game is. I don't want to talk to people in a town. Something's not right. Why is the gate unlocked? Luna, there's no way she didn't lock it. I should fix it. Oh, I was interacting with those things and turning them on. Could I have been too late? Should I go check the village? No, Gemini is there. They'll be fine. Honestly, she'll handle it better than I could. I want to see how this is being marketed. Metroidvania RPG Adventure Action Indie 2D. Pajama Town have a collection. Simple ball game. From simple ball game to Holo and Veil. Okay. I think this person thinks that an RPG is a game where you talk to characters. Wine? Are you upset about something? I'm not upset. Really? Then why are you making that face? My face? I'm not making a face. Wine, this is a serious situation. There's no going back now. I know it's serious. I just then act that way. Okay, am I Holo now? I've got... The game is taking a very long time to show me what the game is. Simple ball game. Oh, this is going to be a platformer where we go into JRPG combat, I think, which is just like... It's not what I want. I scheduled the wrong game, I think. I think a game where you use platforming for exploration and then you do this for combat is not a Metroidvania. I think. I don't know. I just... It looks like it's going to do something, Holo. Relax. Make sure you watch its movements carefully. Press A at the exact moment an attack connects with Holo or Wine to reduce the damage taken. I know I've said that this form of combat needs other things in it to make it interesting, but I think quick time events are probably at the bottom of my list of things I would prefer you did if you were going to do JRPG style turn-based combat. Yeah, there's kind of some redeeming qualities to that combat system, but it's not... It's that the problem is, like, I don't feel like I'm making interesting tactical decisions in that kind of system. Because it's just like, it's this person's turn, there's no spatial element, they have a very limited set of things they can do. It's usually either do a small attack for no resources, or do a big attack for using some resources. That's how these systems tend to work. And then when you throw in quick time events to block and trigger things, it's just alternating between two things that I don't like, which is like very shallow tactics and very like you must do this thing at exactly this time, rhythm game type stuff. And I don't really like either of those things most of the time, and when you put them together, it's like whatever the opposite of peanut butter jelly is. I mean, I don't like peanut butter jelly. I like peanut butter. I don't want jam with peanut butter. But the example here would just be two things I don't like. It'd be like jam with ketchup. I don't like either of those things. I definitely don't want them both at the same time. So it's going to be hard to really judge this because it's like we're doing some platforming, which is like floaty, kind of fine. And now we can do combat in the platforming, but we've got a separate combat system. Oh, I attack them and that triggers the combat. There's some strange decisions here, folks. I sort of admire it for the amount of experimentation that they've done. I feel like that's admirable in its own way. Like the art style, it's obviously like they've worked within the constraints of what they're able to draw, and they've come up with something that's interesting. I think there's a little bit of a misalignment between how dark and edgy they want the characters to look and the like theme of the world, and how kind of goofy and cute and cartoony it looks because of the weight of the lines and the gradients. It feels like a early 2000s Flash game. It feels like a kind of art style that would be okay if the tone of the world wasn't taking itself seriously. If this was like a goofy game about characters making fart jokes, then this art style would be totally fine. But it's this very kind of grimdark, Final Fantasy-esque, you know, Book of the New Sun, science fantasy kind of dark world. And I think when you couple that with this kind of very Flash-looking vector art with all of these gradients and stuff, it feels a little bit kind of sort of juvenile, for want of a better word. And I sort of admire the amount of different things they've tried to put together, because I'd always prefer, you know, people's first games to be experiments with just jamming stuff that they like together, because I think that's just how we end up with more interesting games. But I don't want to do like what ostensibly looks like it's going to be an action platformer where I have an attack and then go and play Final Fantasy VI for 2 seconds, or go and play the Stick of Truth for 5 seconds and do some very uninteresting decision making in that tactical combat and some, you know, heavy rain quick time events. It's just, there's so many things that I don't like on their own stacked on top of each other, and it just makes it very hard to really appraise this in any sort of objective way, because it's just like a meal made up of a set of ingredients where I don't like any one of the ingredients, let alone the fact that you've put them together, you know. Please do make a goofy game about people making fart jokes and put it on Steam. I can switch to wine, which is now explaining why I've got a party. She does some healing or something? I don't know. Yeah, I haven't played Expedition 33. I don't know if I will, to be honest. Music choice is good. I like the idea behind the character designs. I just think rendering them in this art style is a mismatch of tones. Oh, a piece of lost heritage, broken and dusty. Someone must have an idea of what it is. Absolutely not reading logs. Expedition 3.3. It's definitely got a very strong kind of emo teens first game vibe to it. And I don't even mean that disparagingly. I just, there's this type of Newgrounds game that this reminds me of. And, it's just like this mix of things that someone thinks is cool. And I don't necessarily think they're not cool, but they don't necessarily add up to a game that I find particularly engaging. You could take one single element of this, like the world building and the story and everything, and put it in a different game, and I probably find it quite engaging. I don't even hate this art style. I just think it's a bad mix for how tonally dark and serious the rest of the game is. I think it's much better to make a game that looks a little bit silly and goofy and is okay with that. And then maybe has some like darker, more serious themes underneath that, but it's not presenting itself as this very like serious, lofty fantasy or sci-fi world. Because when you go the other way, and it's like presenting a very serious, lofty world, and then the art style looks a little bit too childish, it kind of feels silly in an unintentional way. And I think it's always better to be intentionally silly than unintentionally silly. And the enemy designs just feel like they were rushed. Drop tour. Got some high-class bozos, boys. Yeah, they're just light bulbs. You see this a lot. I saw this in Geoland. There was a game I reviewed last year that was like a RPG like this that someone had worked on for like 5 years or something. And they'd made a Flash version and then they'd gone back and remade it in some other engine. And they sent that in. And it was this type of game, you know, like a kind of JRPG homage with lots of kind of talking to characters in a town. And the enemies were all just like triangles and stuff. And they'd created a, you know, world reason for that, a fictional reason why it was a geometric land where everything was geometry. And it's just like, yeah, but that's, you're trying to like cut a corner on one of the things that people care about in a Final Fantasy game, which is seeing this vast array of cool looking monsters. I think you need to sort of accept that that's part of that genre. If you're going to do that genre, it's like, okay, the variation of stuff that I can do as the player in these combats is not interesting. What's interesting is the variation of the enemies and like how weird they are and how you encounter this enemy and it looks weird and you learn what it can do. And that's part of the game. That's part of Shin Megami Tensei. That's part of Suikoden. That's part of all of these different games that are in that mold. And you can even see it in Slay the Spire. You know, Slay the Spire is a game where you will fight most of the same enemies every time you play it. And part of the like top level mastery of that game is gradually learning what they do so that you don't, so that you can remember it and you see them and you immediately go, oh, this is that guy that I need to not use skills on, or this is that guy that every other turn I need to do this on. And when I see one of these games and someone has just skimped on the enemies and made them all like the same thing, or hasn't really thought about that side of things, it's like, do you get what people get out of playing these games? Or have you just sort of picked this type of game to make because you think certain aspects of it are easy to execute? Wine decided to look up the log entry for Sentry Alpha in Lowe's journal. Gunnar said the art style is at least consistent, which is better than I got a load of asset packs look you see far too often. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. I don't have anything against asset packs, but I think you should use assets that are in a style that you can modify and which go together. How do I get out of here? There's like a platform I can't reach. I mean, we're stuck down a hole now. I don't think there's a way out of here. I killed those guys. Can I teleport places? I bet I can't. The thing is, if you're going to make a Metroidvania with backtracking, you need to give people something to do while they backtrack. And Hollow Knight, you can kill stuff and you can grind for resources as you go back and forth in the world and you go different ways around and all of that kind of stuff. Dash jump. Sorry, I missed that. There we go. So that's the dash jump. But it doesn't... It's not high enough to do anything here with. There's the other character I can't actually move as. So when you use the other character, it switches to her and she heals. And you can't actually control her. So I can't jump higher with her because I can't actually be her. She just is a healing move that you can do. Jump dash is just a sideways air dash or on the ground dash. No, no. I mean, maybe it told us what to do, but this is the problem. If you bombard people with loads of reading before they've even decided what your game, you know, before they've learned what your game is and understood whether or not they even want to play it, it's like I'm gonna miss stuff. How do I go back? Where's the option to like load an older save or something like that? I'm going to come out and go back in just to give it a fair chance. I need to stop soon, but I will give it 10 more minutes. Yeah, that's where we're checkpointed to. So if I did get some information about how to get back up there, we're not going to get it again. A drop of condensed vapor. Soft locked. Man. Are there more options at the checkpoint thingy? Nope, it just does that now. The first time I did it, it said some story thing about checking the log. Unless it's asking me to read this and work out some kind of puzzle, which again, it's just introducing too many different modes of play. So it's very hard to understand what the game wants you to do at a top level because it's just trying to be everything at once. A note before I start, blah, blah, blah. I've been feeling very homesick lately. Maybe if I was born a cloud, I could just drift along. No worries, just the air flowing between me. I wouldn't feel anything. Actually, now that I think about it, I wouldn't be able to feel the air, would I? That's depressing. Let's see if we can get some Morgan Freeman source on this. At least the ancestor came with us. All this stuff feels more significant because of it. Or maybe I should say him. They? Now that I think about it, I'm not really sure what pronoun I'm supposed to use. I'll just ask Tonya. She'll know. Signing out, Davis. No, even reading the log in Morgan Freeman's voice hasn't got us any further. So, can she jump higher? No, you cannot play as her. When I press B to change to her, all it does is some sort of healing spell and then switches back automatically. You cannot actually be both characters. You can only be the main character. The other character is just an ability. This is a great game, but it needs more penguins. I only play video games when they contain penguins. Kinnell said, there might be a reason why, for example, Final Fantasy games typically start with an action sequence and get into the main story after that. Yeah, it's a problem. You need to show people what your game is as quickly as possible in the game. Because you waste less of their time then, you know. In any kind of design or business, there is an attention funnel. And at the very top, it's people that ever hear or see your thing. And every time you lose some people, the funnel gets narrower. So in the context of a game, it's like people see your game on YouTube or Steam or whatever, and they develop some interest, and then they get a little bit closer to like going and downloading it. And every time you lose some people because they're like, actually, that's not for me. And the longer you hold on to people before revealing that the thing actually wasn't for them, the more likely they are to be very annoyed with you. Because if someone picks up your game and in 5 minutes they can tell that it's not for them, they're not going to leave you a bad review on Steam. If your game, the marketing packaging of your game, the tutorial of your game, if your game seems to be actively lying to someone about what it is, they're much more likely to feel like you've wasted their time, and they're much more likely to leave you a bad review. And this applies to lots of different things beyond games. Your game needs to kind of just show people what it is immediately, and that's why you go straight into gameplay. Now, there are obviously historical examples where that is not the case. Canella in the chat just said, Final Fantasy games throw you into combat straight away. Yeah, the one that I played recently that didn't do that, Fire Emblem on the Switch, does not do that. It takes a very long time in Fire Emblem to get into a state in the game where you can actually reasonably regularly and for decent amounts of time play the tactical combat part of the game. It front loads so much story and world building, but that's because it's Fire Emblem, so they're allowed to do it. And I think one of the things that happens a lot is that people that want to make indie games see design patterns out there in the wild in AAA games, and they think, well, they can do that, so I can do that. And it's like, well, they can only do that because they have the brand power of being Fire Emblem, you know? Like, Hideo Kojima can do really irritating things in his games because people will play anything he makes because he's Hideo Kojima. You're not Hideo Kojima. I'm not Hideo Kojima. This game is not Fire Emblem. And it's just like, show people what the game actually is as quickly as possible. And if you have story, make sure that it is kind of working towards that, rather than just like doing this thing of sort of assuming that your audience already cares about the story and the world, which they don't. And like, even in the best games, if you look at all of the influences for this, you know, the Expedition 33s, the Hollow Knights, all the other games that this game seems to be influenced by, they let you play the game before they ask you to be super invested in the world and reading story logs and all of that kind of stuff. And you really need to acknowledge that, not just as a kind of fact of business of like, oh, if you don't, you know, you don't want people to be annoyed and leave you a bad review, you need to do this. It's like, this is a kind of threshold concept for being a good game designer, is that your game is there to, you know, serve the people who play it, and not to impress them with a hobby that you did. You know, people aren't there to be impressed by the amount of things you put in your game or how kind of technically well it runs under the hood. They are there for their own experience, and that's kind of like a threshold that lots of people never get over. because they're too sort of enamored with the thing that they made because they put so much effort into it. And that's a understandable way to feel, but I think as soon as you reach the point where you're putting things on a commercial platform like Steam, then you need to be kind of realistic about these things, and you need to understand that your game is there for people to play, and not for people to, you know, jump straight in and be interested in your grand science fantasy world, which is kind of cool. Like, I really think the creative direction of this, I don't think the art direction of it is good. I don't think the art direction suits the narrative design or the creative direction of the world building or whatever you want to call that side of things. But I do think this is cool. Like, if I'm not saying the developers should go back and change the art, 'cause I don't think it would save the game. But I think the most appealing part of this project for me is the kind of the way the characters are drawn and dressed and all of the art in the background. And yeah, maybe that is just kind of clair obscur, and I just haven't played that, which I probably never will because I'm not super interested in it. But I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. I would love to see this studio take all of this art and world building and just make a way simpler game. Make a Dead Cells or something like that. You know, don't make a game and slap RPG on it because it's got turn-based combat and talking to too many people that don't have anything to say, because again, studios can get away with that when they have a really big brand power, when they're a Final Fantasy or a Fire Emblem. But I just don't think, you know, small studios can ever really get away with being that sort of lackadaisical with people's time, you know. Yeah. The start with powers, then lose them trope. I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, sorry to end on a ramble. I probably played the games in the wrong order. Let me see. So, I said I use a little system of symbols. I had, the first two games had stars on, and this one had a thumbs down on, which basically meant be prepared for this game to not be great. I love being proven wrong, but you can get so much first impression from a Steam page. And that's why Jonas's Steam, what's it called? Steam Guesser game was cool, I think, in terms of what it showed people. Like, the first impressions people have when they see your game here is like, is usually right in some direction. I think you need to activate the relic in the menu. Okay, we'll try it. We'll try it, just to give it a little bit more of a chance to get unstuck here, but... CBA, can't be asked. That's what it says there. I think, you know, if you show me a guy with a cool sword, I just want the game to be as focused on being a guy using a cool sword as possible. That's it for me, you know? Called bounce. Where? No, those are combat attacks. Allows jumping while dashing. Increases jump height during a dash. Okay. So we have to highlight them like that to activate them. Okay, let's try it. So if I... Yeah, I don't know. She gives us a little light when she does her spell. Oh, Mario. That's too many work hours. You need to tell them to chill. Okay, we're going to... Mario Cola has been working too much. So what we're going to do, we're going to all channel our energy. I want you all to help me collectively manifest a pay rise for Mario Cola. So I'm going to end the stream in a second. We're going to switch over to the drum and bass dancing low poly dock. And when you see that screen, I want you to manifest a pay rise for Mario Cola. We can get all 86 people that are watching this live to do that. Mario's going to have so many euros. I'm going to edit down some footage of the first 2 games from today and put out a short, like 5 to 10 minute video that's just called something like "There are still good platformers," because it bothers me so much that there are people out there that are just like, make this type of game, don't make this type of game, and then kind of misusing statistics in order to tell psychologically vulnerable people what to do. In order to profit from them in some way, shape or form. It bothers me. So I will put out a video that's called something like, "You can still make a good platformer if you want," or something like that, based on those first 2 games that we saw today that were incredibly good. This third one has a lot of problems. There was a lot to talk about. I don't really have much more to kind of dig into on that one. I just feel like it's a product of too many things that the dev thought was cool but didn't think about whether they could execute them or whether they went together. I'm also going to be finishing off my personal review for the Ananthropy book. So next episode of the Game Developers Library podcast will be myself and Tom discussing this book. I will put my longer form thoughts on Patreon for everyone who's in the blue tier or above. It will summarize what the book's about and also some like broader cultural stuff that it made me think about. So if you like reading people's thoughts in a long form thing, that will be on Patreon in the next couple of days ahead of the episode. Also, this isn't a how to make games book. It's like a potted history of kind of strange little art games that were coming out around 2012 and a few years before that. It has lots of references to games I would like to play and record for that episode of the podcast. The podcast usually goes out, the Game Developers Library podcast just usually goes out as a flat screen with no video or anything. I'm really tempted to go and to like do a stream next week where I just play through as many of these as possible, but I also have a sneak feeling that a lot of them will be flash games that just you can't play anymore, which is a real shame. But yeah, this is an interesting little bit of kind of cultural history. It won't really tell you how to make games, but I think it's still got some sort of interesting historical moments in and perspectives on what games are and what they're good for. So yeah, that will be coming up on the Patreon as a sort of review blog post in the next couple of days, and then the actual episode will be out in a few weeks. Yeah, so those of you who enjoy hearing myself and Tom, who is my almost neighbor who also makes games, talk about books, that will be coming up soon. I'm going to end the stream now. We're going to go over to trying to manifest a pay rise for Mario Cola. Please join me now in 30 seconds of projecting your will into the universe to generate euros.